Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. How are you today? I know you're doing good. I expect that from you. Only the highest and greatest good here on the Edge. Today we have Nancy Zugschwert.
Pretty close. Right? Zugschwert.
Zugschwert. Nancy Z is what we're going to call her today. And she has a very important job. That's to help us learn how to communicate. Because the art of communication has diminished. It's embarrassing. It's not just how you speak or who you speak to. It's your love language. It's your posture. It's being interesting, being interested in someone else, making that connection. What about a connection with your spouse? How are you communicating with them? We're going to talk to her about that and a whole lot more. She's also a midlife mentor. What is that? I'm over the midlife. I'm on my third quarter of my third act. But we're going to welcome her to the show and get some clarity, get our communication style right. How are you, Nancy?
I'm doing great today, April. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you. I am glad to talk about this subject because, as I said in the intro, communication has diminished. And it's not just about talking, but too, the words that are coming out of our mouth, how we make people feel, how we respond, how we look, how we sit, how we gesture, all of those things. Tell me a little bit about you, Nancy, and how you found yourself in this space in the world.
Well, thanks for asking that. I am a lifelong Minnesotan, so I live in the middle north of the country. I have been here since birth and lived in the Twin Cities area since college. I'm married to a wonderful man named Jimmy Z, aka Jimmy Zugschwert, and we're going on 40 years this coming December.
Wow, I just celebrated 41. I got your year.
Congratulations.
That's a podcast within itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everybody will say, "Oh, you're so lucky." I'm like, luck has nothing to do with it, friends.
That's right. It takes skill, talent, and patience.
Absolutely. But he's a wonderful man. He makes it easy and fun. We have 4 sons. We have 3 daughters-in-law and 3 grandsons. Wow. So lots of testosterone in my world, and we have a lot of fun. All my kids live in this area, so we get together pretty regularly as family, and I really just appreciate that so much. We're really involved in our church, and our faith is a huge part of our life. From the communication standpoint, I will tell you the joke in my family is that I was a late talker and I was a late walker. No. I was an early walker and a late talker. And once I started, I never stopped. And I have seen the power of communication. I remember as a little girl that I realized with my words, I could get people's attention. With my words, I could make people laugh. I could lighten the mood of a heavy situation. And I have always had the ability to form words that sound good, make sense, and sometimes often have impact. I learned to write well, so I write, I speak, and communication has always fascinated me. The more I studied it in college, and I came to realize that there are so many barriers to communication that instead of complaining when it doesn't happen, we should actually celebrate when it does. Because every time you and I communicate, there are factors at play that we don't even see, we don't know. It's our culture, it's our upbringing, it's how we were taught to demonstrate respect. One thing you do might be very respectful in your culture, and I might have a different way to receive that as disrespectful. And until we can find our way with words to talk about it and then recognize it and unpack it, we operate on these different spheres. And so it's just always been a joy for me to communicate well. I hold it in a very high value, and my career has always been there. I was worked in higher education in communication capacity. All of my other jobs had huge communication components. So when I left the workforce 4 years ago to go out on my own, it seemed like a really natural place to lean in. I'm going to help people communicate, whether I freelance write for them or whether I bring communication education and training. And I've added in the last 6 months or so work in the area of purpose as well. So that's kind of my
Mhm.
two areas of passion on foundationally, because it applies to so many things, is
Mhm.
communication, understanding your purpose. And when you have those two things going, you can really be unstoppable.
But having a message, what is it that you're communicating? What are you trying to get across? Pros or cons? And be interesting and being received. A lot of times people, I have been places and hear people talk, it's like watching paint dry.
It can be painful.
It can be painful. And you're wondering, did you practice what you preach? Are you serious? Um, a way to influence people,
Hmm.
your purpose. So you have to have all of these things. I know I was president of Toastmasters International, and they taught communication and public speaking in such a fun way.
Hmm.
Learn parliamentary procedure, but how to tell a story, how to take a pause. And I think one of the most fundamental parts of communication that people overlook is listening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was a 10-year Toastmaster myself
Mm,
and I really respect the organization and had a chance to be in contests and win
right. I
awards.
know.
But
Great.
I agree with you that it isn't just speaking. We can speak till the cows come home, but if we don't have someone to listen to us, or if we're not a respectful listener with the person we're speaking with, we'll never engage in the dialogue that we really can.
And now,
And
people are so geared towards influencing and persuading. I've come to realize, sadly enough, that the truth is no longer the truth anymore. The truth is a matter of perception, how you perceive things. Everybody wants to be right, but having that influence, and especially like in the church, you see the pastor in the pulpit or the lectern, and you're captivated by every word that they speak. But what people don't do, I find, is go back and develop their own relationship and read the entire text for themselves. You know, people don't get
right.
complete information. You have to listen to the pros, you have to listen to the cons so that you can make an informed decision. Wouldn't you agree?
100%, both in the church and outside the church. The challenge today is out in the church, we have the word, so we have the source, and that's good. And the better you know it, the better you're going to be able to discern.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting trickier and trickier outside the church because I literally was even just earlier today on one of the social media channels, and you hear the opposite land narrative of the two ways that we've been divided. And I don't know anymore where a true reliable source is.
Right.
We are in an era of agenda based manipulative communication to a degree that I've never seen in my lifetime, and very few of us are equipped to navigate it well.
Right.
You were
To
talking
coin
about
to coin a phrase, when someone brought to our attention fake news, I was like, "What?" And now it's come to pass. It could be about anything. It could be about your health or information, finance, whatever. You can't really trust the sources. You have to do a lot more deep diving.
a lot more deep diving. Very true. It's a very, very interesting era we're in. And yet, despite everything that is going on around us, at the end of the day, most of our lives are not out there. Our lives are right here in the
Right.
conversation I'm in right now with an individual person. And I believe very strongly in the power of us to influence the out there by having every in here encounter be as positive as possible. That when
Mm,
enough of us take the care to want to be in a place where I call it connected communication, where we interact with people in such a way that every time I'm with someone, I want three things to be conveyed. One is I see you. One is I hear you.
Mhm.
And the third is I share your humanity.
Oh, wow, it's beautiful.
And if I come into that, that now I've put those three things above what you believe, what you identify as, what you think about a topic or anything, I see you first as a human being that I want to make sure that after you're with me, you know you've been seen and heard, and that I see more, that I'm actually actively looking for things we have in common more than different.
I used to do that when I was in customer service. That was one of the things that they taught us was the most powerful thing in the world. You get someone on the phone and they would be angry. You'd listen and then you'd repeat back what you heard to let them know, okay, I heard you.
Yeah.
That, I'm validated. And then you go to the third thing, how can I help you? How can I make this better for you? And it would work like a charm. Now I get someone on the phone, they want to overtalk you. They don't even want to hear what you're saying. And then I say, well, I just told you that. So that lets me know that they weren't paying attention. People want in conversations now um, for you to be interested in them in a
Mhm.
networking event per se. They don't just want to hear about me. They want to know that you are interested in what they're doing, their job, their skill, what they bring to the table. Um, do you find that that's a problem when people are trying to connect? Is that they don't give the other person the opportunity to shine?
Oh, absolutely. I think, it goes really communication fundamentals, the classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That the favorite sound that people like to hear is the sound of their own name. And that book is all about you being the one who knows this. And that when you choose to become a listener. And so I think that you find both. I go to these events and I see the gamut. I do definitely have conversations where I just smile and nod. I'll ask a few questions. They'll answer. I'll ask another question, and I will know everything about them and realize they didn't ask once back to me a single question.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I have noticed this. Even we've gone out with couples and we're like, wow, we sure learned a lot about them. And we like go through our heads and they didn't ask a single thing about what's going on in our lives. And I'm not faulting them. They haven't been trained.
Right,
And sometimes it's because they go through their life so hungry for someone to listen to them that because we're listeners and because we're curious, they just lap it up. And I think they probably go not they're not being evil or just completely selfish. I think it's sometimes such a rarity to have people interested in them. Of course they spill over. And I mean the goal, however, is for us to all be attentive, to want to be elevating our level of communication. I
right,
like to say that all of us communicate naturally, but not all of us are natural communicators.
right,
So those of us who are natural communicators have an edge to begin with, but one of the reasons I'm in communication is I want to help people gain the skill, even if they don't put words together as easily as I do. I love to share techniques and ways that you can become more comfortable
mm-hmm.
in these networking situations where you can be attentive to say, look, the successful conversation isn't the one where I get you to know all about me. So, gee, maybe you're going to work with me. The
Right.
successful conversation is, I show you that I see you, I hear you, and share your humanity. And maybe that'll inspire you to do the same back to me. And then we both feel mutually gratified in the
Absolutely.
conversation.
But there's other communication styles too that people don't talk about as much. It's your eye contact and your body language.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah,
speaks
that is a lot.
volumes. You know, I
It
know
does.
I've been places where this is all you had to do is this and look your eyes and all that. And a person was like, "Wow, she's aggressive or she's all over the place, whatever." That nonverbal communication.
Yeah, one of my favorite statistics, I remember this. College was a long time ago for me, but in one of my communication classes, we learned the work of a man named Alfred? I think it was Alfred Morabian, and he studied dissonance in communication. Like when there's dissonance, when there's disagreement between what your words say and what your body language is saying, that the body language, the nonverbal communication, which includes tone, gestures, all of those things carries 97% of the message.
Wow.
So if I always used to use this example when I taught customer service training many years ago. If I say to you, arms folded, kind of like neutral, kind of tight-lipped look on my face, and I say, "It's okay, April. I'm not mad." What are you going to believe?
That you're not telling me the truth.
Exactly. Versus, it's okay. I'm not mad.
Hmm.
So when we don't have alignment with verbal and nonverbal, people are going to believe the nonverbal. They're going to watch what you do and how your body is, where your eyes go, what you're fidgety, and that's going to be your tell more than your words. And that's why we struggle so much with sometimes politicians, because it's like, yeah, your words are saying that, but
Right.
whether it's the actual actions in the moment or the actions of what your policy says, I'm not seeing the alignment.
Right. Exactly. But people are looking for what they want to see.
Yes.
Give us a couple three key things that we should always be conscious of or be aware of personally when we're interacting with others in a professional environment per se.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. That's a really good question. The one that popped to mind first is curiosity over condemnation, curiosity over complaining. That when something comes up in a conversation that makes you go like, I didn't like the way they said that, or wow, they're crabby today, or why are they doing this that way? Instead of leaping to judgment and condemnation, discipline your mind to be curious and to say, hmm, that action they're doing, that response seems almost out of proportion to what I perceive as what the impetus or the trigger was for why they're behaving that way. I wonder what's going on. I wonder what maybe happened to that person this morning that brought them into work in such a bad mood. I wonder what happened in their past that makes them so angry about what seems to me, at least in this moment, a small matter. And it's not like I leap immediately to ask them the question, like, well, what's going on with you? But it's simply to acknowledge that there's something possibly bigger and deeper and not even related that could be going on. And I'm just curious. And I'll say, April, I'm sorry, it seemed like what I said really upset you. Is there something that I did, or is there something going on that I can help you with?
Beautiful.
And we build bridges that way. But when we jump to condemnation, or what I just decide I don't like how you behaved and I cut you off because we're just in that era where if I just, as soon as I decide I don't like you or don't agree with you, I don't need to interact with you. But I'll go to our coworkers and say, can you believe what she said this morning?
Mm-hmm,
And we
mm-hmm,
just, then we create this cycle of ick. Whereas simple curiosity, and really curiosity, if you really want to make it a powerful tool, is curiosity plus compassion. Curiosity
mm-hmm,
plus compassion, knowing that you might be the only person today who shows them some understanding. Because chances are, the phrase that we say is how we show up anywhere is how we show up everywhere.
mm-hmm,
That if you're in a good place and you can see that, if they act this way every time someone asks them something or when this situation happens, they must have a lot of strife in their life
mm-hmm,
because it's not settling well with me. But I'm going to choose to say, this isn't about me. It's something going on with them. And I can either just lovingly help them through the moment, or I can be curious and maybe draw it out. You decide the level of engagement you want. But it just really starts to give you a lot of peace, I think, as a communicator when you
yes,
maintain that demeanor versus jumping to judgment.
right. As a human being, I'm a woman of a particular age.
I like the way you said that.
And I woke up one morning and I said, you know what, April? It's about how you process the information, how I choose to receive it. Some people can be very direct. I had a situation with a family member that just came up out the ground, Nancy. I didn't even know who this person was. I was like, this is not the person I've known for 40 years. But I stepped back. I took the deep breath. I did not go to condemnation right away. I didn't go to aggression right away. I didn't even go to defensiveness right away. I let them speak. And that's one of the hardest things is to let someone complete their thought because you got so much emotion that you're over speaking them and overthinking them. And then in the end, you know what I said? I surrender. You win. It took it from 100 down to 40
So
because
good.
I decided with to myself, is this a battle that I really want to, go? Because words are powerful and they are hurtful and they're like bullets. Once you fire them, you're not getting them back. And
Yeah.
you can say, I'm sorry, but really, what was your true underlying intention? Was it to hurt? Was it to maim? Was it to shame? Or was it to glorify, elevate? What was your intention? So I do that too. I take that moment to say, what could possibly be the motive here, or what is the intention here? So
Mhm.
that's very good advice. I appreciate that. You and your husband now are collaborating on a relationship type of communication. People's love language, it's very different. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to be loved a certain kind of way, a different kind of way. But if you don't communicate that to your partner and say, you know what, this doesn't feel good, or, I'm not in the moment with you, or this is a boundary I'm not crossing, they'll never know. And they'll never know how to respect that. You've been married 40, I've been married 41. I told you in the green room, that's a conversation we could have an interview on all day, because it has taken a lot of time to communicate. When did you kind of feel that you and your husband were in sync? You had gotten to that point that, I feel his heartbeat.
Mm. That's such a good question. We are in such a sweet place right now. You know how you look over the years, you see the older couples that like shuffle down the road together,
Mm-hmm.
and you can
Mm-hmm.
just tell there's this oneness. And I remember always thinking, like, when does that happen? And I'm just super excited because I'm not shuffling yet, and we feel that. We're
I
just
know, and I'm there right now. Yeah, I'm in a good
and
space.
And I do try to put my finger on it because it wasn't always there. You get married, you're in love, it's all so great. We had some little pretty tough blips on the radar within our first 5 years. Some very difficult conversations we had to have. I would I remember an era where I just thought, well, I guess this is the way it's going to be. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
committed to my marriage and I'm going to stay. I'm bored. Our conversations aren't interesting. And then it just started to shift. And for our family, the situations were that our progression coincided with us going deeper in our faith. At one point in time, we were in a church, but our church was just like a go to Sunday, go home kind of church, and didn't really encourage us to understand God's word and read the Bible. And then we had some mentors in our life said, just start reading the Bible for yourself. Just read it for yourself, whether they read it in church or not. And we started reading it, and it came alive for us.
Mm-hmm.
And each of us made separate commitments to be more students of the Word. And I would say that our progression and trajectory changed not suddenly, but to me, miraculously over time, when my husband, especially, made a decision to get up at 5 a.m. every day and start reading the Bible every day of the he has read a proverb a day. There's 31 proverbs,
Mm-hmm.
so 30 to 31 days in most months. He reads a proverb a day, and he has probably done that for 20 to 25 years.
Wow.
So he's reading this book that infuses him with wisdom. And I'm going to get emotional when I say this because my husband talks about this, that he would read that of a proverb, and I should know which one it is. It says, cherish the wife of your youth.
Mm-hmm.
And when he read this in the Bible and he realized he wasn't cherishing me, he prayed to God and asked him to give my husband a heart that would always
Mm-hmm.
cherish me.
Wow.
And I don't know when he did that, but I can tell that he did that because I walk in the room and I literally my husband's eyes just light up. Like they just light up like a kid on Christmas. When I walk in the room, I don't even say anything and he just shakes his head and I'll say, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I just can't believe how much I love you." And
I
you know
know.
his
I know.
and I'm like, this is the same guy who, 30 years ago I thought, is this it? Are we just going to be sitting in the car in silence? And I can't explain how it changed. And this is why I get so passionate when I see couples just give up because they give up because it's through the hard stuff that you get to the good stuff. And you quit, you get divorced, you get married again, and you go through it all over again because you never stay long enough to get to the good stuff. And then the
You
good
gotta
stuff,
get through. You gotta go through the wheat to get to the straw.
it's so true. So this is what's motivated us. We just decided that we want to work together full time. We're not ready to retire. We want to keep giving back. We both love to speak, and so we're creating a marriage program for typically, or not typically, but specifically for entrepreneurs, couples that work together
Oh
that have
wow.
entrepreneurism in their family because I think they have an added set of pressures. The business takes such demand on them. And now that we're one of those couples, we really feel that we could support people to build it to last. And
I resilience. You know,
exactly.
our marriage was defined, well, tried to be defined by outside influences, the naysayers. And I was like, no. And so I made a commitment, and my husband made a commitment that that wasn't going to be it.
Right.
There was only two people. There was a husband and a wife. There wasn't this person. There wasn't a sister. There wasn't an aunt. There wasn't a child's mother. All of these people would have destroyed us if we hadn't have been, again, strong in our faith, in our word, and in our commitment, and to the vows that we took to one another. And
Yeah.
I'm much like you. I've been married 41 years, and he has a way of clearing his throat. And I tell you, we'll be in the grocery store and we'll be on separate aisles, and I'll hear him clear his throat. I know right where he is. And
I
my
love
heart
that.
skips a beat because he makes it a point to open the door for me. He makes it a point to say, thank you for cooking breakfast. I appreciate you. At 40 years, people think that that becomes automatic. And I think that is so sweet and so endearing. It's the little things.
It is. It's the
It's the
moment.
little thing. It's the moments. It's not about, the big diamond ring, which those are nice.
Not gonna lie.
Right. But it is, and it's a different type of love language. It's okay, this is what I need from you to
Yeah.
support me in this particular thing, you know. But intimacy, people don't communicate that. This is not something that I'm fond of, or this is something that I desire. These are things that you need to communicate with your partner if it's going to last. And secrets, you can't keep a
Mm-mm.
secret. Nobody can keep
No.
a secret. What do they say? What you do in the dark will always come to the light. So you have to be careful about that. And if you trust a person, trust is a big $25 word, because trust is contingent on someone else doing something else. Nancy, if I tell you something and you go and tell Barb, I can't trust you. Well, you have a choice at that point. You could have kept it to yourself, that would have been very easy, or not have the expectation that Nancy may not tell Barb. When you open that can of worms, that's where
That's
it is.
right.
So it's the expectation that people put on their messaging as well.
I
This is
have a friend. I have a
yeah,
friend who says a secret is something you only tell one person. Who tells
that's
one person? Who tells one
that's
person?
perfect. Have you written a book?
I have not written a book. I'm working on a couple. One is on communication recipes. I call it the Ultimate Communication Cookbook. That's coming out, and I have a
That's
kind of a more of a
interesting. What's that going to be about?
well, I talked about the natural communicator versus communicating naturally. I resisted teaching communication for the longest time because I didn't know how to teach what I just did naturally.
Mm,
And my husband and I were talking about this a couple years ago, and he said something that triggered the idea. He used the word ingredients. Like you need, and I thought, that's it. That's the secret that we need to just, when we want to communicate, we need first the recipe to what are we trying to make? We're trying to make connected communication. We're trying to cook up a crisis communication situation, not cook up, but respond to. We have a conflict happening, and so I need the recipe for how I do a conflict situation. And so once I started to think about it that way, and then you just reverse engineer it, or well, what are the ingredients then that go into that? And
mm,
that's where like connected communication came up. And so my recipe for connected communication has three ingredients. I see you, I hear you, I share your humanity, conflict communication One of the best tools or ingredients in conflict communication, for example, is what I call communication consent. And you can tell I love alliteration. It's all starts with the letter C.
Hmm.
But communication consent is a tool or an ingredient that is powerful because what it
Right.
does is clear someone's permission to receive what you have to share with them.
That's
So
huge.
if I have feedback for you, maybe it's just a little suggestion of something you could do differently, or maybe it's we really need to talk about that thing that happened, but I need to clear that you're ready for it. You clear the time, space, and place.
Mm.
Make sure that this is a good time. Make sure that you are in the right headspace and make sure that this is the place where it makes sense to do it. And the biggest way I think about consent is like if you picture a river or a body of water and you're standing on one side and I'm standing on the other, there's this thing between us that I feel a need to address. I don't know yet whether you feel that need, but it's in me. It's I feel like for our relationship to go forward, or maybe just for me to help you, whatever it is, I have something that you may or may not be aware of. And one way to do it is just to like get in a boat, come over and tell you what I think. And you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't ask for that. I'm not ready for that. But if you think of it in the terms of building a bridge, what do you need when you build a bridge across the body of water? You need footings on each side. And
Mhm.
the problem is on my side, I own the real estate on my side. You own the real estate on your side. I can start the bridge by building a footing on my side, and I might be able to get part way across the body of water, but I can't finish the bridge without getting you giving me permission to build a footing on
Right.
your side. So consent puts the footing in place so that I can start to build the bridge if we're trying to rebuild after something broke down. But it's just as simple as like, hey, April, I feel like yesterday when we were talking, it kind of went south. I'd love to share like what I was thinking and what I observed was going on. Are you open to talking about that again?
Mm.
And you can go like, no, I just want to stay mad at you. And I can go, okay, that's fine. Well, if you change your
Right.
mind, let me know. And when I ask consent, I have to be willing to receive no. It's not,
Right.
and I literally broke my own rule yesterday. I was talking to my son at something, I was seeing my adult son at an event. I had maybe a maternal opinion for him.
Hmm. Hmm.
I asked his consent and he didn't really acknowledge it, and I gave it to him anyway. And you know what? Shut the door. He didn't want to
Okay.
hear what mama had to say.
Right. Right. Well,
He,
I have a situation with my adult daughter, and I decide to take the opposite approach because I am a big personality. Okay. And I give it to you 110%. But what I had done one time is I was very confrontational with her, and it didn't land very well. It really didn't. So this time I said, you know what? I'm going to show you, then I can tell you. Situation arise. I haven't said a word. You are an adult. You know, I don't have to keep doing all this jaw jacking.
that's
I
right.
want to see if you can figure it out. I really want to see if you have the tools, or even if you have the ability or the capacity to want to work this out. So, what you're saying is, I will hold that in my heart to get permission, to get consent, to say, okay, look, if this situation doesn't pan out a week or two, I'll revisit it. But I will have given enough time and enough space in between where I'm not so upset,
Right.
I don't come off so aggressive, and that I've given this person another time, a little bit of time to process it, to rethink it. So that was very, very valuable. Thank you for that, Nancy. I'll hold that close to my heart. Let's
Good.
ask you some fun questions before we conclude the interview because you got $1 million smile. What kind of toothpaste do you use?
Oh, I don't even know what I'm using right now. But oh, I will tell you a secret. I'm trying to whiten my teeth and I don't want to spend a lot of money. And I don't know if I should share this. I think it's a sister-in-law of mine said she has the whitest teeth. I said, what did you do? She rinses with hydrogen peroxide.
I was telling my husband that yesterday, and he goes, "Oh, my hygienist says don't do that." Well, it does. It can burn your gums. You got to mix it with
Mix
water.
it with water. Yeah.
But it is amazing that and baking soda. Okay,
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
little tip for you. If you were an appliance in the kitchen, Nancy Z, what appliance would you be?
What appliance would I be? I'm pretty sure I'd be the refrigerator.
Me
And
too.
be the refrigerator because it's the first place people go to. You open the door and there's always variety. There's always choices of what to do. You can always find something tasty. And I'm human, so you'll occasionally find some moldy things that should have been discarded a while ago
Yeah.
too.
Or if it gets too intense, you can save it for later and freeze it.
That's a good one. Yes.
That's good. If you were a tool in a toolbox, what tool would you be?
A tool in the toolbox. Well, I've probably lived my life mostly as a hammer, but I'm working to not just, what is it, if all you have is a hammer, all the world is a nail. I think if I go with the tool I'd want to be versus maybe the tool that I am, I'd like to be a level. Even though, I mean, I swing, I mean, I think my whole life is like always trying to get back to equilibrium. I don't do things like nice and steady all the way along. I'll be like, okay, I have allowed my room to get to chaos beyond reason, and now I'm going to swing the pendulum. And instead of like staying, then now I've got it orderly and I'm just going to day to day take it, I'll just eventually get back to chaos again and I swing. And so I think I'd like to be a level just to have a little more
Mm.
not quite so swingy sometimes.
I want to be a roll of duct tape
Oh, why is that?
because you can use it for anything. I mean, you can put a car bumper back on. You could make a wallet out of it.
Do you know how many
It's durable.
colors? Do you know how many
Yes.
colors of when we moved 4 years ago, I had this, I'm sure it was on the internet. We used duct tape to mark everything by color coding where it would go in the house. So all of the kitchen stuff was purple or whatever. And so I had signs on each door for the movers to, put it. So it worked out really well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Duct tape is beautiful. If you could have a conversation with a 25-year-old Nancy Z, what would you share with her?
Ooh, it's really practical. I would tell 25-year-old Nancy Z to read books about money mindset and basic wealth creation habits until she got it, and to seek information uh, so she could live knowledgeably throughout her life and reap the benefits of that.
Yeah. Because people have it confused. Being rich and being wealthy are two totally different things.
They are.
Two totally different things. And so
Yeah,
I just finished a book, The Psychology of Money, and it's very, very powerful. And so people need to consider that as well.
right. And
If
it's
you
never
were
too late to change.
never until it's over. Um, if you were an animal, what animal would you be?
I think I'd be a kangaroo.
A kangaroo.
I'd be a kangaroo because they come in, they're unique and different. They kind of make a presence. You've always got something handy to keep your most important stuff. You got a pouch to keep your people close and keep your things handy.
Mm.
And when needed, you can sock a pretty powerful punch if you need to protect
Oh, I
yourself.
know. I know. I had a run-in with a kangaroo in Australia. I was feeding it, had my hand out, and pulling my hand back. That's not the thing to do. Took a stance and
Ooh.
then hopped, and I didn't realize how far they could hop. And then that Joey swung from between her legs. I was like, okay, I am so sorry. Here's the whole bag. And I walked away. But that's a strong, powerful animal that's free, that roams. So I could see that. I could see that in you. I think I'd be an elephant.
An elephant.
An elephant. I love elephants. That's my spirit animal. Um, they have a lot of pride. They're good parents. They believe in community. They take care of one another. Um, they're vegetarians. I'm not a vegetarian, but I admire that. So there's a lot. There's really a lot, and they have beautiful ivory tusks that help protect them and protect their family.
I tell you, I wouldn't mind being an elephant right now for the memory part.
Oh, I know, I know. Is that important in communication? Do you have any tricks to remember people's names? That is
Mm.
huge. I try to do that. I try to do name face association. Like, okay, Nancy, I would say, I think of you and I say, okay, Nancy Drew, because I like Nancy Drew mysteries. I could associate with that. But that's a very powerful communication tool too.
It is. And yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of tricks out there. I've been exposed recently to a man named Tom Chanot. Was really has been super successful in the network marketing industry. I was in a network marketing business for a few years and, came across his teaching, and he uses a tool that he calls contact mapping. And one of the things he does is whenever he meets someone, as soon as he's out of their presence, he takes time to jot down their name, key facts that he learned about them, and even visual triggers. If, with phones these days, if it's not creepy, like he'll say, hey, let's do a selfie. So he'll actually also do a picture of them if he can. And so then if he sees them again, he actually has created an online tool that he uses. It's an app, and he can pull it up and he can go, oh, I don't remember her name, but I remember something about that person. Like it triggered that she said she had an anniversary or something, and he'll have enough factoids entered in the database there, the information he's collected, that he can pull it up, so that he can go up to her and say, oh, hey, bro, good to see you again. I
Right.
think last time we talked, you were about to go on a trip to the UK. And you'll go like, what? So I think the fundamental is, and I'm saying this as like I'm sharing someone else's tips because I'm still not as good about as at it as I would like. Something I'm still working on. But the fundamental is you deciding you care about that person. Most of us don't remember names well. I heard someone say this recently, and it was a big ouch to me. Most of us don't remember our names well because we're actually thinking about ourselves when we're being introduced to them.
Wow. Right. We're
And so I was
very,
really convicted by that. And that's why I really like these tools, and I'm trying to get better, but I'm also a very scattered person, and we have this kind of tension between this is like who I am and my natural self, and where that serves me and others well, great. And there's other parts about my natural self where I'll say that is natural for me to be more this way, but it's more powerful and more in alignment with what I say my values are about connected communication if I learn to tame that natural self
right.
and be more present and be more connected as a
Absolutely.
communicator.
Absolutely. Do you pay attention to power mudras when people are talking and you're in their presence, how they position their hands?
I don't. I really I and
I have
intuitively I might, but not consciously.
I have really started to study that
What do you notice?
uh a lot, a lot. You will see certain influencers on television, especially men. They hold their hands this way a lot. You will see spiritual people always hold their hands this way. But it is something, go on and Google them. I have a chart, 36 different power mudras that I meditate with or when I pray with. And it really makes an influential difference in the communication style, how it is received, and the power that you feel on the inside.
Interesting. I will look that up.
It's pretty good.
I know myself, I'm a bit of a fidgeter. So I notice my hands are usually in motion, and I admire people who can be still when they talk because I can't.
Right.
And
But
even on
sometimes,
Zoom.
sometimes people are over exaggerate with their hands. They're constantly doing this and it's distracting, but sometimes when you want to emphasize a point or you want to bring something together, your heart or whatever, it really has a strong influence.
Yeah.
Again,
And
that's
you
that
notice
body language.
Zoom is funny to me because, like, if you ever watch a recording of yourself on Zoom, you're like, man, I itch my nose a lot, or I scratch my head. But I'm a hands by my face person. When
Wow.
I'm sitting, especially like at a table, I have a hard time. I'm almost always end up like this or like this. And when I catch myself, I'm like, why are your hands by your face? And then I don't know what to do with them.
But
So,
it's like also catching the filler words, the the
oh
ahs, the
yes.
you knows, the likes. If these young people say like to me one more time, I'm going to turn blue. It's like what, baby? Get it out. Listen to what you say. We all use ahs, and we used to always admire Barack Obama and his communication style. But when he would speak off the cuff, he was so annoying. And I know he's trying to think about what he's saying. He has to be careful about what he says, but just take a pause.
Yeah,
Take
don't
a
you want to just
breath.
call him up and say, you should
I
join
wanted to tell him that
Toastmasters?
he had 36 ums in that speech, and it drove me crazy.
If you've ever been a Toastmaster, you can never listen to someone the same again. Like you've been in church and heard a sermon, I couldn't hear anything past the 15th you
I
know?
know. It was like, what are you trying to say to me? Because I feel like, we're running a race and then all of a sudden you stop and then you just got to start again. You got to stop. But it takes practice and you have to listen to yourself. And I know I do that on my Zoom recording. Sometimes I say, that's one of your pet peeves, but you did a pretty good run on the ums and the ahs, but it takes practice. In closing, Nancy Z, what do you want your legacy to be?
Hmm. I want my legacy being to be. That's a great question. I want my legacy to be that someone knows that I loved the Lord Jesus with all my heart, all my soul, my strength, my mind. I want people to know that they can have that hope, and I want people to feel like they've been seen and heard and understood.
Well, you've done that and then some. Please tell my brains how to get in contact with you. I'd love for them to work with you, to follow you, and we're definitely going to let them know when that book is out.
Yes, and I would love to stay connected with anybody listening to this. In fact, I'd even love to share a little tool. We talked about communicate, all connected communication starts with a conversation, and we talked about networking and how do we deal with strangers. I made a simple tool that's called 50 Ways to Start a Conversation Without Having to Talk about the Weather. Very simple
I
conversations.
saw that. I saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So you can grab that at my website is nancyz.com. And then this tool you can get if you do slash 50 ways. So nancyz.com/50ways, 50 ways. And that will lead you to a place where you can download that tool and you'll get connected with me through my email list then. You'll hear about upcoming events like the master classes that we're doing for our marriage program, other things I do with purpose coaching, and it'll just be really fun to stay connected. And if you do join the list and get an email from me, please reply and say, I heard about you on April's show so that we can find out where we were connected.
Well, thank you so much, Brains. Get your communication style upgraded. Okay, we can always improve. If it's with our listening, if it's with our body language, if it's with taking a pause, if it is asking permission, if it's being gracious, and sometimes just being silent speaks volumes. Thank you so much, Nancy, for being on the edge. Brains, I need you to go in and love, like, share, and subscribe. You see this right here? This is where you go. Love, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We read the comments. This is how we grow and evolve. We want to give you what you need, not necessarily what we think you need, but actually what you need to fortify you, to fill you, and to give you your highest and greatest good. God bless you, Nancy. You're a queen.
Thanks, April. It was great to talk to you.
All right. Bye, Brains.